Hey. Time for another Out of This World story from rSpace. You think your week's been rough? Imagine getting into a fight with your wife, having your dog rehomed, and then receiving a naked revenge video, all before breakfast. Today on rSpace, a short fuse meets impulsive revenge and proves once again that flying off the handle never actually gets you anywhere, except maybe divorce. Wife sent me video of her cheating as revenge over a dog. I sent her worse in return. I, 28 male, have been married to my wife, Diana, 27 female, for only 2 years now, but it is clear that our marriage is headed for the rocks. I know I'm old enough to be smarter, but this is my opportunity to tell everyone not to make the same mistake I did. Don't think that you can change red flags or expect your partner to evolve past them. Expect that those red flags will stay in place until the day you die. If you do that, you won't end up in the same kind of mess that I did. One thing that's been a constant about Diana is that she has a short fuse. Her sisters and her mom said that's how she's always been, but that it wasn't as bad as it was when she was a teenager. I hoped that meant that things would continue to improve, especially as she gets older, but that was a stupid thing for me to put my hopes on. And before you ask me why I decided to commit to a person like that, the answer is that outside of her quick temper, she was the perfect woman for me. The temper would come out like once every few months, so it didn't seem like the kind of thing for me to lose a good woman over. You don't need to tear me a new one because I've learned my lesson and there's nothing that you're going to say that I haven't already told myself. We both agreed that we'd try for children when we were a bit better established financially, which wasn't the current moment. The truth is, we aren't close to being well off and we tend to struggle with paying the rent most months. I'm attending trade school on the side of working retail, so I do hope things will step up for me at some point in the near future. Despite not being in such a great position financially, we made a bit of an impulsive decision to get a puppy. We knew that expenses would be a lot tighter with an animal in the mix, but I did the math and I figured that we'd be able to put money together each month by cutting on some of the things that sucked up our funds. So we ended up getting a puppy, a golden retriever. Things were going great financially. We were actually able to sail through owning the dog without going into the red for the first 3 months. However, after that point, it started to get tighter than we wanted it to be. One of the big problems was that Diana resumed Starbucks, which was one of the luxuries we had to cut to make things work. She said that she was only going once a week, so it wasn't meant to be a big deal. But it was, especially because it seemed more like she was going 2 or 3 times in the average work week from how much was being spent. I did my best to convince her to stop going entirely, and at that point, I was able to see her expenditure drop to what seemed more like once a week. I decided to let her have that little, so I didn't bother. I just started to take a little bit more overtime to cover the deficit. Yes, in retrospect, I was allowing her to get away with breaking our agreement. I'm young and I'm learning this marriage thing on the job. Take it easy on me. The real problem started when she lost her job. The worst part was that she had lost her job because she let her temper bubble a bit more than it should have at work, and in front of a customer. She was let go right away, and her losing her job was a major hit on our finances. For the first 2 weeks or so, she was applying to jobs on a daily basis, and I was doing my best to help her find the best ones to suit her. However, after that 2-week mark, she started to slack off a bit, and while I understand how depressing it can be to keep getting rejection emails, I told her that she had to keep the momentum going. Things started to go to hell about 2 months after she lost her job. She found a part-time role, but it was barely paying anything. I did some budgeting and found that things were very tight because of the expenses from her dog. I realized that we'd have been able to survive on my salary alone, though barely, if we didn't have the dog and if we cut out essentially all luxuries from our lives. I brought it up to her that rehoming our dog could help us out a lot, but she flew off the handle and said that I was heartless for bringing that up so casually. I told her that even if I said it casually, it wasn't the kind of thing I brought up lightly. I loved Buster as much as she did, and I had been the one who had done all the work in actually getting the dog, because I was so excited to have a pet to love. However, it was a matter of survival, and unless we were going to reduce our standard of living in an unhealthy way, it'd be hard for us to keep our dog around. She didn't want to hear it though. I told her that she'd have to intensify her job search since that was the only way we could potentially get Buster to stick around. The next day, I saw her searching for work and I was glad. Sadly, there wasn't anything clicking after about 3 weeks, besides the part-time gig that she was working, which had petered out. I let her know that there didn't seem to be much of a choice and that we probably made a mistake getting a dog in the first place. To her, it was as if I said that I wished our child was never born. Again, I loved the dog, but I really didn't see why we'd potentially risk being evicted. We didn't have anyone who'd take us in. We were in too rough a spot to be very picky. I tried my best to show her the math and get her to understand, but it really didn't work. I told her one day that I was going to do it whether she liked it or not, and her reaction to that was really violent. She said that she'd never forgive me if I did. I genuinely asked her for how we could make things work, especially because she hadn't even cut out Starbucks and Netflix like we said we would. She wasn't doing everything she could to make it work while I was. She said that I was punishing her for losing her job. I told her that I understood how it seemed like that, but it really wasn't personal. We had chosen a silly time to get a dog, and it was stressing us out more than it should have. I told her that if we had a surprise vet visit, we'd end up bankrupt. Even when she had a job, I had been the one paying the large majority of the expenses related to Buster. We could get a dog when we were better off, but we had been impulsive and it wasn't a good time for us. She refused to see my point, so I knew that I was going to go ahead and do it. I told her as much, and the next day, I put out an ad looking for a nice family to rehome our dog with. Within the week, I had found a family. I carried her along through every step of the way so that it wouldn't come as a surprise. Yes, I felt horrible through the whole thing, not just because I was giving away my sweet dog, but because I knew I was breaking my wife's heart. If we lived anywhere close to family, we might have been able to find a fix, but neither of us were any close to relatives. Finally, the day came when I got back home and told her that I had rehomed our dog. Like I said, I had been carrying her along as I did everything, but she still didn't seem to believe it. She told me to say that I was joking, but I let her know that I wasn't. I had gotten some money from the new family to offset costs for a lot of the accessories that I gave them with Buster, and that helped with the finances for the month. I was happy about that at the very least, but she wasn't. She walked out, checked the car, saw that Buster wasn't there, and then she flipped out on me. She called me pretty much every name in the book, and when I saw that she was shaking with rage, I knew that it was one of those times that her bad temper came out. I wasn't surprised to see it, though, because I can understand how what I did hurt. The problem was that there simply wasn't another choice for us. Now, while I can fully understand everything that she did up to this point, what came after is where she ruined everything. She threw on some clothes, and she was out of the house without a word to me in like 5 minutes. I asked where she was going as she moved towards the door, but she didn't say anything. I thought she needed to take a walk or something, but when she wasn't back in an hour, I started to get worried. I tried to call her several times, but it kept going to voicemail. I finally found out where she was when she sent me a message. Everything fell apart at that point because it was a selfie video of her, naked and chest down on a bed, with some older guy plowing her from behind. She was making a big act of how much she was enjoying it. I found it very hard to describe what my reaction to seeing this was. Look, I know that I had hurt her, but looking at that video, I felt like my chest was on fire. It was a true gut punch because there was no reason for me to anticipate that why she left the house was to go and cheat on me. And it was so obvious that it was meant to be her revenge for me rehoming the dog. That pissed me off because rehoming our dog hurt me too. It wasn't as if it only hurt her. She made such an impulsive decision to get back at me, and she wasn't satisfied with just doing it, but she had to make sure that I knew she did it. It hurt so bad. I wanted her to come back home that night so that I could be angry at her and find an outlet for all of it. But I also didn't want her to return because I was furious and I was scared of what would happen. She's never been mad enough to do anything of that sort, and needless to say, it was the angriest I had ever been. Thankfully, she didn't return that night. It wasn't until the next morning that she came back home. I didn't sleep a wink the entire night. When she first sent the video, I watched enough, but the moment I realized what was going on, I stopped. However, through the night, there was a morbid curiosity that I had to satisfy. I needed to know if it was some kind of elaborate joke. I'd only watched like 10 seconds the first time, but I watched the rest, which was less than a minute in total. It wasn't a joke, and I felt even worse. I was really scared that I was going to hurt her, but when she came in, I was able to keep it all in. I screamed at her the moment she walked in and asked her why she had done it. She seemed like she was scared of me, which wasn't what I expected. I expected her to come in as angry as me, but I didn't see that. She was still very close to the door, as if she would need to bolt out. I told her to speak or I was going to lose my mind. In a way, it was so disappointing to hear her whisper an "I'm sorry," because it sounded like she actually was. But there was no way those words would work after what she had done. I think that was the point that I realized that she had sobered up from her temper and had been left with the mess she had made. She must have recognized that she had gone way too far, and now she was left with a mess. I ranted at her, telling her that it hadn't come to me easily, but she acted like it did. I didn't want to get rid of our dog, but I had to do that because it was financially smart for us, especially after we dropped to only one full income. It was never her fault then, but this time around, our marriage falling apart was entirely her fault. She looked like she wanted to get a word in, but I didn't leave an opening for that. I told her that I was going to file for divorce. I told her that The ease with which she cheated on me probably showed me that it had happened before. She tried to butt in at that point and probably say that it wasn't true, but I didn't pay it any attention to what she had to say. I told her that she could get a dog for herself when she was single, whether it bankrupted her or not. I noticed that the more I laid into her, the more she started to get defensive. She claimed that she tried to delete the video sometime after she sent it, but she had passed the window for deleting the message. I told her that instead of deleting the video, she could have tried not cheating at all. I could notice her temper starting to surface, so I let off the gas. There was no point to it anyway, since I knew that we were done. I let her know that I'd be moving out for her, since I didn't want to keep the place. She could bother with the rent once I was gone. I knew she wouldn't be able to handle it. After I said that, I noticed that she tried to beg me to reconsider. But I didn't listen, because I'm sure it only came from the fact that she was still working part-time and she realized she was about to have a bad time financially. I packed up as much as I could and had my pal with a pickup truck come to get me and my stuff. At the moment, I'm looking for my own place, which will hopefully be a lot more affordable than the last place, since I'm the only one who will be living there. I've gotten a cheap divorce lawyer and had Diana served. I'm hoping that we will be able to agree on a split. We're poor, so it's not like there's that much to split between the two of us. She decides the perfect way to get back at you for rehoming a dog is cheating on you and sending you a video? Absolute next level insanity. Anyone who reacts like that over something so minor is not someone you can reason with or survive living with. Getting out? Absolutely the right call. Update. Hello everyone. I wrote a post here some months back about my wife who cheated on me and sent me a video of it because I made a tough decision to rehome our dog. Needless to say, I filed for divorce, and that process is finally over. We're far from rich, so there was very little for us to fight over beyond furniture and other things that were in our old place. There were a few things that I really wanted, so I focused on those. Thankfully, she didn't make the negotiation process any more complicated than it needed to be. I got what I wanted. I assumed she got the thing she wanted, and I don't need to pay anyone alimony, though she initially proposed it, which is fantastic. She chose to stay in the apartment, which would have been smart if she could afford it, but I doubted that she could. I'm sure she felt like that was the point, that we were both going to part ways, but after the divorce, I was feeling very petty. I'm relatively young and the marriage barely lasted any time. It felt stupid to be a divorcee so young, and it also hurt having the relative stability that I had thrown away. So I knew that I needed to hit her with something to feel a little bit better about how everything had just been ruined. What better way was there for me to show her how I felt than for me to do the same thing? I know that my own version wouldn't hurt as much because we were divorced, but I think we all know that seeing your recent ex hooking up with someone else is never going to go down smoothly. I wanted it to hurt extra bad, so I went to the store that she had worked at before being fired. I had been there a lot back when she was still employed, so a few of the employees recognized me. I told them that I wasn't there to cause any trouble, and I picked a lady that Diana had always said was loose. I'm not the one to profile, but just from looking at her, I could tell that was true. Diana didn't hate her, but she definitely didn't like her, and that would just make things better. I thought better of just letting her know my plan right there. I let her know I was divorced, started flirting heavily with her, and told her that I'd like to see her when her shift was over. That worked pretty well for me, and within a week, I was in her apartment. At that point, I told her that it'd be a nice bonus if she let me record a video of her from behind, and I told her why. She thought it was hot and also agreed for me to get my revenge because she always hated that witch. So things went down, and it was very good, though I certainly won't be going for seconds. I got my video and I sent it to Diana as soon as I got home. Even though it was from behind, she was able to recognize the tattoo that her old coworker had on her neck. As you can expect, she lost her mind. The good thing was that she had no idea where I lived, so all she could do was keep barking at me from afar. I told her that I was giving her a little taste of what she had put me through. I made it clear that she was getting the better deal since we weren't even together anymore, so unlike her, I wasn't betraying her. She called me, and simply for craps and giggles, I picked up. She was incredibly angry, and she said that I had been especially immature because I had clearly gone to find someone who she knew and who knew her. She said I was incredibly petty and that she was glad that she had been able to leave my butt because I was clearly immature. All of that was funny to me because I was only doing the exact same thing she had done to me. When she just kept screaming obscenities, I eventually hung up the phone. I chose to block her on everything because it seemed like her next plan would be to send me yet another video of her smashing someone. I didn't need that. But I've finally come to the end of this story, and that's what matters most. I know that a lot of people in the last post came at me because they said there were different choices I could have taken for rehoming the dog. Some of them made sense, some didn't. Either way, it seemed the best choice at the time, as she wasn't even able to bring an option to counter mine. Buster's home is still treating him amazing, and I want to go and see him right after the divorce. If there's a moral to this story, it's to be financially smarter than we were, and not let the red flags slip under your radar. Just assume they'll be there forever, and you'll be better off for it. Honestly, that wasn't about you or the dog. It was about her unhinged reaction and complete inability to handle any kind of frustration or disappointment. Anyone who escalates a disagreement over a pet into cheating and sending a video has already checked out of reality. You didn't cause the chaos, you were just caught in the middle of it. If someone shows you that much chaos in action, believe it. Don't ignore it, don't compromise with it, and definitely don't assume it'll get better. Honestly, sounds like she wasn't so perfect for you after all. What do you make of this? Thank you for joining us today on rSpace. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. See you next time.